Good morning, Lauren. Great to be here.
Well, you know, it's so interesting because I have a 13-year-old niece, and she is now the recipient of a lot of my clothes that I've grown out of.
Lucky girl.
Yeah. And I'm really surprised at how well she wears them and how she sort of really is very comfortable. You know, it used to be years ago that, you know, you didn't wear your mom's or your auntie's clothes, but now they fit her very well. So why do you think this is?
Well, you know, so many things have changed, and you're so right, Lauren. I mean, when most of us were growing up, we were mortified to wear our mom's clothes or our aunt's clothes or to listen to their music or to even eat their food. But these days, everything is different. And I started noticing this trend about a year ago when I would plop down in my chair to get a manicure. And more often than not, I would notice around me there would be young girls, 9 or 11 years old, in the chairs getting manicures also.
Yeah, I didn't get a manicure until I was in my 30s.
Me too. I didn't get my first manicure till my wedding day, but that is no longer the case. And as a frequent traveler, I travel a lot for work, and I'll walk onto an airplane, and as I'm strolling through business class, I'll see a 5-year-old sitting there in their Bose headphones. Oh. And I thought to myself, something is happening. So I began to research this new era we're living in where parents and kids are now actively aspiring to the same brands and products and services. And there's a few things driving the trend. One of the biggest ones is that women are getting married so much later in life. Mm-hmm. According to a new White House study, the average college-educated woman in the U.S. now gets married for the first time at the ripe old age of 30.
Wow.
So let's say you're pregnant for the first time at 34, which is no longer so unusual. Mm-hmm. That means you've had a good 12 to 16 years of establishing a lifestyle before yourself before kids come along.
But
so
you know
by then you've been... Yes, go ahead, Lauren.
But Bridget, one of the things that seems odd, though, is that you would think it would be the other way around, that instead that they would keep the children would have fewer things in common with their older parents, and then they would actually divide them rather than bring them together. Doesn't that seem odd?
Well, you know, by the time you're in your 30s, a lot of parents have been acquiring, let's say, frequent flyer miles, either through credit card use or through working. So instead of having that rite of passage after college where maybe you go on your first international trip, the trips are happening earlier, and kids are going out of the country flying on their parents' frequent flyer miles earlier than ever. Or mom's been going to Starbucks for 15 years, so when you're born, you're pushed right into that Starbucks in your stroller. So, and then you also have pop culture, which is crossing generational lines more than ever before. I mean, just take Glee for one example. My friend has a 13-year-old son who was singing Journey's Don't Stop Believin' around the house the other day. And so my friend started singing along with him, and his son said, "Dad, how do you know that song?" Because he thought it was for his generation. And of course the father was thinking, my goodness, you know, that came out in the 80s. That was my song first. So Glee's been doing the Beatles, Journey, all these 80s songs. We had Madonna at the Super Bowl introducing a whole new generation of kids and young girls to who Madonna is. So even pop culture is driving this cross-generational divide. It's closing the gap.
Now, I'm wondering if there's a negative, and I've got to bring up the negative also. Sometimes the kids grow up too fast, and maybe having older parents, the parents have not actually sort of grown up in themselves. They're sort of this sort of delayed adolescence or elongated adolescence. So by the time they come along and have the income and have the resources to give to their kids, they're kind of creating friends rather than being the parent in the relationship. I mean, do you see any evidence of that?
Well, I think those might be two different issues. You're right, though, Lauren. I mean, the world is changing fast, and if you see a very young girl with, say, a Louis Vuitton bag, you think, gosh, what do you have to aspire to by the time you're in your 20s and 30s if you've already got one now? But I think the world is changing fast, and the world that the kids are going to inherit 10 or 20 years from now is something that we can't even imagine, and there will be new things that come along that we're not even imagining today that they will aspire to that we don't even know about yet.
Yeah, it's really fascinating too, because do you think that a lot of the young people, they copy adult clothes, or do you think the adults are just kind of copying kids' clothes? Or, well, I mean, it's really kind of fun though. I mean, it's actually kind of neat that you can kind of share clothes, but who's copying whom?
It's really hard to say. I think, parents are staying younger longer, and as you pointed out, kids are growing up faster. The other day I was in a hotel lobby, and I saw literally a 4-year-old girl wearing pink Converse Chuck Taylor high tops, and across from her was a guy and his wife. He was about 55 years old, and he was wearing a black pair of Converse Chuck Taylor high tops. And I thought, I can't believe I'm witnessing a 4-year-old girl and a 55-year-old man wearing the same piece of fashion. And it struck me as very amusing and interesting, and a real commentary on how, adults and kids now want the same things more than ever. And you certainly see that in the world of electronics. I mean, every family member will want something that begins with an I, or whatever the coolest electronic gadget is. Yeah. That goes from age, 5 to 85.
Well, I'm still waiting for my first iPad, so we'll see.
Me too.
Okay, I want to thank you so much, Bridget Brennan, talking about the female factor at Bridget Brennan. You want to check that out as well. There's the website.